Welcome to Learning to Learn. My name is Gibbs, and this is the channel that will hopefully help you become a better learner by sharing tips, tricks, and techniques that will help you study better and learn more. And my question for you today is, when was the last time you made a paper aeroplane? Now, you can have a lot of fun with their paper aeroplanes. And I remember that when I was at school, I used to have lots of fun making paper aeroplanes. Get a sheet of paper, fold it about, that to there, that to there, fold it across, and finally that one to there, like that. I have to admit that although I did have a lot of fun with my paper aeroplanes, I did make sure that the students weren't watching when I did so. Now, let's try this out. I'm quite pleased with that. Anyway, you may well ask, why are we looking at paper aeroplanes? And the reason is because paper aeroplanes are a really good metaphor for learning, especially when it comes to learning a skill, something that you have to practice, such as learning a new language, playing a musical instrument, or even doing exams. So, what's this got to do with paper aeroplanes? Well, if you take a paper aeroplane and throw it, you'll find that basically in almost every case, the flight path of the paper aeroplane is pretty similar. To start with, goes up a little bit, but then from a certain point, it turns and starts to go gracefully down, or not so gracefully down. But whatever happens, downwards tends to be the general trend of a paper aeroplane. And this is what can often happen when we practice doing something. When we try to do something beyond our capabilities, we repeat it and we repeat it, and our ability gets a little bit better and a little bit better. But at some point, we continue to repeat the same thing, but our improvement stops. It levels off. And in some cases, if we continue to repeat and repeat the same thing, our ability actually starts to go down as we find ourselves cutting corners, forgetting certain details, developing bad habits. And we can become frustrated when we try to practice something continuously and don't see that we're getting any better. And this sort of thing happens quite a lot. For instance, one of my next door neighbours, we'll call him Dave, plays tennis. And as he freely admits, he's been practicing tennis for over 10 years, but he hasn't really got any better. In fact, he says, if anything, he's not as good a tennis player now as he was when he first started. And this is a clear example of what I'm talking about, because when Dave first started playing tennis, he got himself a coach, and his coach pushed him, made him practice things that he found difficult so that his ability went up and up and up. But once he stopped having coaching classes and tried to continue by himself, the things that he was practicing were basically the things that he could already do. And so no matter how much he repeated what he could already do, he never actually got any better. And as I said before, in some ways, he's got a little bit worse as he's developed bad habits and cut corners. Does that sound familiar to you? The key point of what I'm saying here is that it's really important that when we try practicing a new skill, we make sure that we're pushing ourselves to do specific things that we can't do. We have to force ourselves to get out of our comfort zone and go for specific targets that challenge us, and to practice and practice doing things that we find very difficult until we can do them relatively easily. This is the key to successful practice. So this sounds good in theory, but how does it work out in practice? Well, if, for instance, you're learning a language, then something that you might do regularly is listen to films in the original version or watch videos like this one. And what I would challenge you to do is to listen to a short piece of film or even this video, cover the subtitles up, and while you're listening, try and write down what it is that you can hear, because it's quite probable that what you hear and what you're able to understand are not the same thing. And by challenging yourself to do that, you'll be pushing yourself to pay more attention and to increase your listening comprehension. And once you've done it, then the key thing is to go back and try to do it again. Practice is all about repeating the difficult things until you can do it better. So don't go on to a different piece of film. Go back and repeat the same piece again and again every day until you can get it as accurate as you're happy with. If you're practicing a musical instrument, then rather than just repeating the same pieces time after time, push yourself a bit. Try and play it a little bit faster. Get your metronome out, turn it up a little bit so that you really are challenged to try and keep up with the speed that you're trying to play. And if you keep getting it a little bit faster and a little bit faster, then when it comes to play the piece at the regular speed, you'll find that suddenly it's become much easier. And of course, doing an exam is exactly the same thing. Doing an exam is not just a knowledge-based activity, it's also a skill. And so if you are practicing exam papers, don't just answer a practice exam paper once. Come back to it a week later, 2 weeks later, and try and answer the same questions, but maybe give yourself a little bit less time. So that again, you're pushing yourself to come up with those answers that you've done before, but answer it accurately in less time. And that way, not only are you just repeating doing exams, you're practicing by actively pushing yourself beyond your comfortable limit, getting out of your comfort zone, and increasing your skill. So, take a moment to think. What skills would you like to get better at? What skills would you like to practice? And how are you practicing those skills? Are you simply repeating them, not challenging yourself, and therefore not really improving? Or are you setting yourself specific goals that are just out of your reach, that by practicing and pushing yourself, you can get visibly better at? Because if you are doing that, then you're doing great. That is the way to learn stuff better. My name is Ian Gibbs. See you next time.